this for? This is for people that have struggled with improvisation in how they might have been taught. This is especially particular for beginners, intermediate students, anybody that's wanting to try to demystify the improvisation process. So with that, let's talk about the people that this is not for. If you're somebody that's already comfortable in how you improvise, then this probably is not for you, and that's okay. But you're more than welcome to hang out, join, watch the video, leave comments, suggestions, all sorts of things. So, but I want you to know that you will not be the focus of these videos. These videos will be approaching from the beginning on how I teach and approach improvisation, and I really hope that these add value and benefit to you in your playing. One of the things that I want to talk about is the 3 elements inside of all of music, and that is rhythm, melody, and harmony. Now, those 3 elements in music are taught and approached from different angles in different ways, but one of the disservices that the Western education has done with those 3 elements is put them in an order of importance that I think is backwards. So instead of talking about the things that I believe are backwards, let's talk about the things that I believe are important. So out of those 3 elements with rhythm, melody, and harmony, I order those in the importance of rhythm, because it doesn't matter what sort of melody or what sort of harmony you're playing underneath of those. If you have bad rhythm, it's not going to sound very, very good. So rhythm is of utmost importance. And then underneath of that is melody, because if what you're playing doesn't have some sort of logical reasoning or communication to the audience, it sometimes gets lost. And then third, underneath of that is harmony. And I believe one of the reasons why we get this backwards is we spend a lot of time focusing on harmony and what should we be playing over these chords, what should we be playing over this progression. And I think that gets the cart before the horse, because if you play a melody that's strong, it can almost completely obliterate the harmony that's going on underneath of it. It doesn't matter. And which that kind of takes me into this next point, and that's the basis of how I teach improvisation, and this is this grand idea of targeting. I view targeting a little bit more on a grander scale. In terms of, we always need to be focusing on where we're wanting to go, that our target note needs to be our punctuation. It sets up everything that we play before that note. And everything that we can use to get to that note is just a tool used to approach that note. So one way to think about this is our targeted notes is everything that happens on the right side of a measure. And then what happens on the left side of the measure is what we use, the tools, to get to that particular targeted note. We can look at things in a micro or a macro level. So let me kind of break this down just a little bit. So the micro level is going from chord to chord to chord in the chord progression and attaching the thirds and the sevenths. These are known as guide tones. We can include roots and fifths and pretty much any other note that fits inside the chord as a guide tone, but generally speaking, most people would refer to guide tones as the thirds and the sevenths of the chord, and that's because they help define the quality of the chord. So that's the micro version of targeting, is aiming for the third or aiming for the seventh. But we can also look at targeting in the macro level, picking a note that we're aiming at with purpose in a 2-bar phrase, in a 4-bar phrase, in an 8-bar phrase. Where do we want to go in a 16-bar form? And we pick out some of those points along the way. So targeting helps create a map for us when we're working on a specific tune. So that map, we can decide, I want to land on this particular target on the 8th bar of this 8-bar phrase. Or I want to land on this particular target on the 2nd bar of a 2-bar phrase. So we can look at it in a macro, we can look at it in a micro. But let's talk about what we can use to get to our target note first. And one of the most primary tools that I teach for beginners in improvisation is the pentatonic scale. And the reason why is that particular scale has a lot of melodic content in it. It has combinations of whole steps, skips of minor thirds. And we have been using as a worldwide culture the pentatonic scale to create our melodies pretty much since the beginning of time. It doesn't matter what part of the world, somebody is always using some form of the pentatonic scale. Now, the one that I like to start students with is the major pentatonic scale. The reason why is one of the first scales that you learn when you first pick up your instrument happens to be the major scale. So it tends to connect well for beginning students. So what is the pentatonic scale? It is the 1, the 2, the 3, we skip the 4, we go to the 5, the 6, and we skip the 7. So 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and then you repeat again up at the octave. So I'm going to demonstrate that just real quick for those that may not be familiar with the pentatonic scale. And that is the B flat major pentatonic scale. So the 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and then again the octave. For those that are familiar with the song My Girl, this is kind of the quintessential My Girl lick that's played by the bass, it's played by the guitar. But the beautiful thing, like I said, about the pentatonic scale is there's so many great melodies that are hidden within inside of the pentatonic scale. So one of the pseudo assignments that I'd like to invite you to be a part of throughout this week is to look inside of a pentatonic scale and find these little miniature melodies that occur. So I mean, there's so many different things that you can do. These were just little short phrases. Find these melodies that are hidden and contained inside the pentatonic scale. And then what we're going to do is talk about how we use the pentatonic scale to aim at our target note. So again, going back to this grand idea of targeting, we're going to pick a note, and I'll talk about what notes work best for that choice. And then we're going to use the pentatonic scale to get us there. So backing up one last time as a reiteration of everything that I've talked about in this short video, targeting is the grand idea of getting to a note that we're aiming at on purpose, but we can look at it in a micro and we can look at it in a macro version or a macro way. So we can use the pentatonic scale as one of the tools to get there. So as a short preview before I end today's video, I'm going to pick concert F as the targeted note. And so what that forces me to do with the pentatonic scale is think about the very last note being the punctuation of my line. What I play before that could be, this is where creativity comes up. So I'm going to make concert F the last note. Ba-do-ba-do-da. So I made sure that whatever I played left of that note didn't quite matter as long as I was ending on the F. And for me, this is the grand idea of targeting. And I hope you'll join me next week when we dive in a little bit further to talk about what notes are good choices for these targeting notes. So I hope this has added a little bit of value and benefit, and hope that you stick around, enjoy the ride as we explore targeting on a grand scale. Thanks, guys.